my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande. I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande. I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande. I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande. I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande.
Tell them that we born it.
Yo bande, yo bande. I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them
This is Naval String Connections, another episode of the show in the Belizean diaspora. I'm Bilal Morris, here in my studios in Los Angeles with ARIA LIGHTFOOT, live out of Florida. And today, again, we have a very informative show. Sorry, I wasn't able to make it in last week, ARIA. I mean, catch Jeremy again. You know, when you're a teacher, you have parent conference, man, all the people at the pack up. I said, well, I only have like 5 or 6 when you look like they're the poor reader. I'm like, oh man, I don't know. So I apologize for not being here last week to join ARIA on the show, but I'm glad and happy to be well and here today, because today we have very, very, very important and special guests commemorating Women's Month. Dr. Donalyn Myvitt is joining us today live on the XTV show, right? This is an XTV production. Our producer is Nur Muhammad. The man behind the controls is Harlan, always keeping us and bringing us here live and direct. We invite you, the Belizeans and the Belizean diaspora, across the United States, United Kingdom, the Caribbean, Africa, Europe, wherever you live, Belizeans, and that you can reach us on this show. Please do tune in and tell a friend to tell a friend that this show is on, the Belizean show in the Belizean diaspora. And we want again to welcome our viewers also in Belize who watches XTV and Family Creme TV. And we want to invite you, some of our loyal viewers, are right there in Belize itself. And we do feature Belizeans on the ground. And today, Dr. Donalyn Myvitt, a Belizean business expert. I mean, I can't make Aleph ARIA for read out for she accolades.
So good night, everyone. Good night. Thank you for joining us and happy Women's Month. We have a dynamic woman that's joining us tonight that's going to be doing activities around Women's Month. Donalyn, that's the right way to pronounce it, Donalyn?
Very much on point. Good night, and thank you for having me.
So, Donalyn, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And it's Dr. Myvitt. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. what you're doing in Belize, how you're involved with Women's Month this month.
Let me say, in a brief and in a nutshell, I am born and bred, have always been here in Belize, love my home country, and I have the great fortune, I believe, of having been able to connect with women starting through my professional realm, which really is out of a World Bank program that had invited consultants from across the Caribbean to support women entrepreneurs, and that was how I got into really the space of focusing on women. So initially, I started from 2015 doing a leadership conference with women, and COVID, after 5 years, COVID really closed that off. And when I came back to the market focusing on a program for women, it came out as the Celebrate Her concert that we started 3 years ago, and it has really been a really rewarding experience.
Thank you so much. So just to talk a little bit more around the Celebrate Her concert, and also tell us a little bit about like what specifically are you doing for women? You talk about women entrepreneurship. Like what is the goal of this type of endeavor with women? And, you know, are there a reason why we're focusing on women specifically? I know it's Women's Month here, but, you know, there's a lot of times women are not in some spaces. And so these programs are kind of designed a lot to kind of bring them up to speed. So tell us a little bit about exactly what they're targeting with these different programs.
Let me say specifically, I am involved in the Celebrate Her concert, and that comes particularly, although there is an array of offering in the month, because Belize, as you are aware, does Women's Month starting from 1st of March, and there are quite a lot of activities going across the country. And in my particular space that I occupy, it evolved out of being connected with women in the working space and in the business space. When I got involved with women entrepreneurs, it dawned on me really, really strongly how much there was need. Initially, my focus was on women in terms of upskilling them in the realm of their business development, because that is really my background. That is where my formal training and my years of experience has been built. And so that was where I focused. However, one of the things that really came to my attention and also my lived experience is the fact that as a woman, and particularly those of us who occupy the space of being single-headed household, we give so much to our working space and to our family space that we oftentimes neglect ourselves. And in the process of that, I recognize how much women show up in their professional realm and they're tired and they're weary, and no one says to them, listen, it's okay to take some me time. As a matter of fact, it's not only okay, it is important to do self-care. It is important to understand that you have to feed yourself, feed your soul, feed your spirit in order for you to effectively feed others. So out of that, when I looked at the array of offerings in terms of programs for women in Women's Month, I felt that the space existed, and the footprints through the door has proven that, along with the stories women share with me when I first started, and they continue to share with me even today as I spoke with a group of sisters that are intending to come all the way from Hopkins. And it is, no one says to them, take the time consciously to look in the mirror and to say, I value, I need the time to step away from all the other loads and to be able to not feel that you're cheating and that you should be giving your time somewhere else that you deem to be important, but that you can take some time to say, I deserve this. I can come out. I can come in an atmosphere that is really uplifting, extremely supportive, so that if for no other time at all, you get a good program that targets your spirit and bring you in an atmosphere that is really one that's collaborative. It's also one, for me, that I have chosen to exemplify that women can collaborate. Oftentimes we share and we do express the sentiment that women tear women down. And for me, I am taking this opportunity to show collaboration, that women can come together, can collaborate, can come into a really male-dominated space, because entertainment space is really male-dominated, and can come in there collaboratively and can put off a program of excellence. So it's not only one that feeds the audience in terms of our focus, it is also, from my background, looking at women who are artists and musicians and saying to them, listen, here I am creating a space, creating a platform, own it, make it yours, so that when you get on that stage, you're not just singing a song, you are putting off a brand. This is a business. You're not a person. Look at it as a business. And people have really responded to that. I would get calls saying, you know, so-and-so who sang so-and-so, how can I connect with her? We're having an event and we would want to have her come on. So for the artists as well, it's creating a space for them that females are highlighted, because so much focus in the business realm is often given to male and not to females. And so this particularly also showcases our musical talent. So it's a combination of the up and coming, as I always do it, whatever I engage in, is to bring along those who are emerging and put them along those who are established, so that there is that forged link and there is that cross-feeding and learning that occurs.
So just a little bit, just tell us, because you're talking about the Celebrate Her concert, right?
Correct.
So
Yes.
could you just go back, tell us, like you explained that it is really showcase women talent, but when is the concert and what is the expectation that somebody that wants to support it, like when they go there, what type of showcasing will they be doing at that concert?
Okay. The concert is at the Bliss. It's on Saturday, March 29th. It starts at the main stage, moves off at 7:30. We have had the wonderful and fortunate experience of, for example, one of our sponsors, Santiago Castillo Limited, coming on board, and what they are offering as well is 30 minutes pre-concert complimentary cocktail. So for some women, that is something they never get to experience, and it is for them something they look forward to. And for those who have never been before, when they get there, the fact that they are greeted with that, the fact that we also have, for example, complimentary again, they get to take away photographs of the experience. We have Treasured Memories as another sponsor of the program coming on board. They're out of Kaya, a small business co-owned by a female, and they come out and they really make it a wonderful time during that pre-cocktail experience that the women have. Now, when the concert itself starts, it has its unique blend, and unique in this format, it opens, there are 3 segments to the concert. And that the first segment is one that really speaks to our spiritual self. So it offers quite a bit of contemporary music and spiritual music, and they're always themed with a messaging. So, for instance, this year, the 3 levels under which our selections are made comes from love, life, and legacy, and they all feed into each other, starting with love, which will be songs that are spiritual songs. Life is songs that shows and showcase the journey we go through. And legacy is, what do you take away from the experiences you have had in life that becomes a part of your being, that becomes the legacy of who you are. So it's always thematic, it's always message grounding, using music as a universal language. Now, also embedded in it, and a pivotal part of why I feel my presence here also really aligns well with what this is that we have built into the program what is called the Exposure Project. And the Exposure Project is, our objective is to make the audience inclusive, because oftentimes the price point escapes many women, and many of the activities that happens in this month are paid activities as that has taken on, or if it's by invite, which are generally the government one, they're closed because not regular John Doe or Jane can show up there. And so what we did under the exposure project is we made a pledge that at least 1/3 of the audience, sorry, let me rephrase that. Our goal is to reach 1/3 of the audience, but a minimum of 100 tickets. We seek sponsors, and then they're given to under-resourced females through various outreach organizations, through schools. We gift schools, the schools gift under-resourced girls. Those girls go home and gift their moms. And so it's really that snowball effect of showing how collaboration works, of also being inclusive. And so one of the interesting thing, however, is we also sought to link to the diaspora. And the diaspora has really, over the past 2 years, been so really supportive and have really sponsored under-resourced women to attend. So that is also built into it, that we seek sponsorship from the diaspora. It's one way of bringing diaspora into the element, and we have had such really wonderful response. So if anyone is still interested, we're still seeking sponsors for under-resourced women to attend.
So how much is it to sponsor an under-resourced person?
If we're going at the pricing for the general ticket, that would be $25 US. For reserve, it would be $30 US. For the premium, it would be $40 US. That's the price point for the tickets.
And how many underserved women are you targeting for the show? So
as I said before, our goal is really
100.
ultimately to make 1/3 of the audience, but at a minimum we target 100 tickets to give away each year. And so far over the past 2 years, we had realized 290 giveaways over the past 2 years. So whenever we make our appeal, we have really gotten positive responses from the diaspora. People in Belize have stepped up. For instance, we just had a business house that has stepped in and said, I want to sponsor a particular organization, women. Last year we had one sponsoring Help Age. They thought of the seniors, and so seniors came out. And so that's the kind of way we are looking for the collaboration, and really excited about making an appeal once again to the diaspora to support the program.
And you said this is the 3rd year, right?
This is our 3rd year.
How was it received? I know you said that people will get all this different stuff, but what are some of the feedback, especially from the women who are underserved? What are your feedback you get from these women?
Let me put it to you through an example. A woman said to me, you have absolutely no idea the impact that this brings, because we get to be in an atmosphere, people are really warm, and the music, the songs, just the connect with each other in the atmosphere that we create. And we have really created, I feel, a sense of community. Sisters are coming together, sisters buying block, and women groups buying block. Sons bring out their mothers. So let me say, while it's targeting women, it's for women and the men who love them. So it's not an exclusive male audience. We have it unfolding in differing ways, and that's really the wonderful part about it, in that more and more men are embracing the fact that they can come into a space and they can find comfort in a space of this sort. But as I've said before, I find that just the energy of the night, just the type of songs, just the whole interaction of that 2.5 hours of being together, people move away feeling uplifted. They move away feeling a sense of being more empowered, and also they get a tangible example of seeing women working together, which is really a part of our goal as well.
You should have extended that also. I don't see, when you talk about it, do you have a program set up in Mother's Day? This seems very kind of show, because I know that would be a big hit during Mother's Day.
No, I personally don't. I do believe that there is a multitude of space for many of us. When I started in 2023 and I did the media rounds, one of the things I said clearly as I was moving through, that too often we leave everything for the government to do. We expect that the government is supposed to do the heavy lifting for all aspects of life. And I believe that there are more initiatives that needs to come on from a private entrepreneur space, from NGO space, and I'm seeing more and more activities that are now morphing into this program. But Mother's Day particularly, I'm hopeful that someone out there would hear you, because Mother's Day is May, and putting these programs together takes a lot of effort, and so hopefully somebody else would fill that space come that time.
Yeah, also you have entered into a field, non-traditional, kind of. You have dug into an area where, as you talk about, as I hear you speak about male-dominated spaces, and it's a tough thing for women to enter into these spaces where the entertainment that are dominated by Belizean male musicians and artists. I know we have credible Belizean artists, Zoila Clark, female Belizean artists, and so on, that has Nelita Castillo. And I noticed on your bill there for the show, you have Jackie Castillo and people like that. But, you know, it's very interesting to see that you have carved out a niche, a space, if you may, for women to participate in non-traditional. I kind of like that word, because you're not only dealing with entertainment, but speak, if you may, right? Talk about it, if you may, about the other things that you have embarked on as a woman that have led Caribbean non-traditional initiatives, because you are not only operating in Belize, you are operating in that Caribbean perspective. But talk about the challenges that you have met in sort of carving out that particular space for women to collaborate, for them to enter into areas where men dominate, not only in entertainment, but in plumbing, in carpentry, in things of the sort. Creation of jobs for themselves, to break away from those traditional things, because this is one of the things that hold women back a lot in Belize, right? How do they, have these private companies that Belize that don't want to hire women? Talk about that, if you may, Donna.
That's a very delicate issue and an interesting one. And one of the things I will say is I was blessed, and I did not at the time recognize how much of a blessing it was. I was blessed to have been raised by parents that never told me my ambitions had a limit. And more importantly, I had a father who was very engaged in my upbringing and who looked to me, as he did to all my brothers, that we must have the ability to think for ourselves. And what that did for me, which I was unaware of, was it built a sense of confidence in myself that I subsequently come to recognize many women did not get that foundational support in terms of their mindset. And so for women, a big challenge we have, and I faced it, is the ability to walk into the space I occupy. For instance, I will speak from the space I occupy in the first instance, which was corporate Belize. When I started out, I worked at very male-dominated environment. Call the name of the utility I worked there. BL, BTL, BWS, I worked, and then I was the first professional hired at the Public Utilities Commission. I was the first professional taken on when the regulator opened. All male-dominated space, heavily dominated in the fact of their energy, not just the level of education, because I was primarily exposed to engineers sitting in leadership positions. And what I found made it possible for me to have been as successful as I was in that space when I was in an employee role is the fact that I had a strong sense of self. And I know I didn't get that without having the kind of foundational background my parents gave to me. And so when I come in contact now with women who are in non-traditional spaces, one of the things I notice quite a bit is the fact that their ability to hold themselves in that space and saying, you know, I am worthy. I have a right to be here. I've paid my dues, and sometimes we pay more than what is required in order to get there, to be taken seriously, and to be able to deliver as effectively as we oftentimes have the capacity to do. My eldest girl followed in my footsteps. She went into the military. My eldest girl is now a major and is on the path to becoming a lieutenant colonel.
That's the Belize Defense Force, that is.
That's the Belize Defense Force. And that's a very non-traditional space.
Absolutely.
When she was embarking on that journey, even though I'm a mother who explored that path, I had to say to her, are you aware of what this will mean for you? So when women get into non-traditional space, it is one that requires us quite often to sacrifice at a level that our colleagues who are male are now required. There is a certain level oftentimes of dress code that whether we like it or not, we just simply have to do it in order to, I would use the word command, but it's not my first preference of word, to command the level of respect just off the cuff, you know, before we open our mouth. There is a certain level of dress code I felt. And I had a mentor who is a male, because he's still my mentor, Denzel Jenkins. He was in the corporate space at the time. And he said to me clearly, said, whether you like it or not, no matter how much you may have an open mindset to saying men and women are equal, you live in a society that you will not always encounter persons who deal from that platform, from that space, from that mindset. And it behoves you to determine, how do you want to be perceived? How do you want to be treated? And what really is the message you always want to deliver about yourself? And he said to me clearly, how you dress is one of the messaging. So oftentimes I know that may come across and feel uncomfortable, because it may be that we will say too much of the burden is placed on the woman, but there is also the reality to life. And we have to deal and grapple and work through and elevate the environment in which we find ourselves. But ultimately, for me, it's the mindset that has to first be shaped in order for us to be able to navigate ourselves through non-traditional paths. You know, I will say this to you. I can remember saying to my daughter, and I'm going to share this moment, you know, and I'm hoping if she's watching, she'll hold her forehead. She will say, oh, Mom, here you go. You know, I said to my daughter when she said she's going into the military, I said, how many female officers are there? At that point, I believe there may have just been like about one. There was, at the time, the commander was on a path to attracting more females in, and that's how she got enticed into the military, much to my shock. And I said to her, whenever you walk into that space, know for a fact you have been raised. Know who you are, know whose you are. And so, with that, ensure that whatever you encounter, you do not vary from how you were brought up, and you do not allow anyone to take you into a path that departs from the upbringing and the values that were instilled with you. So, to land that point, I said to her, if you ever encounter any of your male officer colleagues saying, go get me a drink, tell them that's not your role.
I like that.
When I did my capstone on the gender equality bill in Belize, and some of the research that I did was that Belize is really treading downwards when it comes to women, even in regular spaces. Not even, you're talking about on spaces where women don't normally are. But more and more women are in Belize. It seems like we're regressing when compared to the world gender gap. How do you feel? And I'm sure their opinion is probably sought. How do you feel about that gender equality bill? Because what I recall when I wrote my paper, and this was about 10 years ago, the male-dominated institutions, the churches, were adamant against it. I mean, and some of the things that they did was to tell husbands, your woman will start to run your household, lose control. And that just somebody just trying to educate themselves. That's not even trying to enter into their non-traditional roles. In your experience with the women that you deal with, how are they relationship-wise, not necessarily personal, but how do their family view them? Because you are right, you are a mother that encourages your daughter to be a strong woman. But that's not the case in a lot of cases. Belize is still very traditional in a lot of communities. So how do you deal with this environment where men actually feel like if their women become educated or if their women enter certain spaces, it's opening Pandora's box and they don't want it. And many times, women are kind of kept down or, they're prevented from going further. Have you encountered that in your experience?
That's such a loaded question, Aria. Have I encountered it? Yes. The challenge becomes, how is it possible to impact the mindset of someone, particularly a female, if she buys into that understanding?
Right.
That's one. And two, how is it possible and what avenues are available to educate our women? Our men along a path that allows for a more open approach to how they deal, they see, and they view women. I'll say to you this way. I can remember as a young girl, my father was, I think, unusual for his time, born 1928, that will tell you what age he was. They had children very late, so I was raised by old parents in when I used to compare it with my peers, right? Because they didn't start having children until their 30s. So among my peers, my parents were old. They were in their 50s and 60s when they were younger. And I can remember distinctly, because he encouraged active debate, I'm going to land this for you, that one of the things he said to me, whether you like it or not, my daughter, the woman is the powerhouse in a relationship. You're arguing for equality, but I want you to know, women are the powerhouses in a relationship. He said to me, I am the head of this household. I am the king in this house. But the reason I am the king in here is because your mother is the crown on my head. She crowns me king. If I don't have that crown on my head, I am not a king. I went through my girlish argument about this whole thing of that is putting too much load on the woman and all of that. But he was giving me a powerful message. And the message he was giving me is to be able to understand that women must set the standard and must set the role they want in their lives. Now that is tied to concrete value system that one must have. The challenge for many of the young women we have today is, where do they get their value system from? Because the community they raise may be showing them one that may not be, that they may not be best served by. And it is, how do we get a message out that allows them to see another approach to life. Hence the idea of the exposure project being a part of Celebrate Her concert, because the tenet on that is that the greatest gift you can give to anyone is exposure. And I will tell you, I have watched young women walk into the bliss, look around, has never ever been inside the bliss. Something that initially I took for granted. The bliss is there. You go to the bliss all the time. I remember a young girl, she was about 15, absolutely looking in awe. Had never seen something like the bliss. And we complain that the bliss needs more enhancement. So the fact that we need to create spaces that we can expose both our youth and our not so young persons to, because some women, even though they are mature women, has never themselves also been in the bliss, has never been exposed to an environment that says, really dress up. There is the purple carpet, the color for Women's Month is purple. We have our purple carpet. They get to walk their purple carpet. They get to roll out. They are served a cocktail. Environment some of them has never touched.
Look,
but just being in that environment makes a difference for them.
That is very important, what you said there, because my next question is, as a follow-up to ours, is how do you then, and apparently you speak about the awe that some women when they went in there, and I would assume those are women from the underserved grassroots Southside communities of Belize. Now, how do you, in your space, and as a leader amongst in taking women out of these non-traditional spheres and dominance and bringing them into the fray, how do you work with the underserved in the grassroots communities, for example, in the Belize City South Side? Because a lot of these people, I was a boy that I had to go look at the place on top of the roof. I couldn't go on top of the bliss. I had to go up on the roof and see Francis Renaud play. Because me and that people like, we believe that girl, highty-tighty people.
And there are those who still believe the bliss is for highty-tighty people, right?
So I'm not shocked at all when you are surprised that a lot of these Belizean women has never had the opportunity have been at the bliss, much less have even gone to a resort or even know their country and seen the fine parts of their country itself. And these are people from the underserved grassroots community. How have you worked tap into and bring women? Because when you talk about women, you're talking about families. Those women are going to bring their children, they're going to bring their men into these spaces eventually, because some of their men and their children have never experienced this. So talk about how you penetrate that and what do your work in bringing the grassroots community to a show like you are putting off.
Well, one of the ways, as I said before, is tangibly through the Exposure Project, where we actually give away hundreds of tickets and invite them to come in, and so they get to be in a space that ordinarily they would not venture in or would not be able to even have the ability to afford to get in, even if they had the courage to get in there. In other realm in which I work, it would be, for example, through my personal work, like with youth enhancement services, where I work on boards. That is a part of how I also give back. I do quite a bit of volunteerism. As I am aging, I get more and more selective with where I put my effort and where I seek to work, because at this space where I'm at, I really want to be aligned with organizations that are purposed along my path, so that I feel that I give where my heart space is and where together we are on the same path. So true volunteerism is how I do quite a bit of my work. And through my church, I'm very faith-based. I worship at St. Mary's Church. And as we speak, there is actually something that I am working on. I cannot reveal what that is until the time comes, that I am working on, that I want to also bring through that arm. So through my faith work, through volunteerism, and through now the actual celebrator comes out through my own business realm.
Talk about also Dr. Darnell Myvitt, and I'm going to address you with that heavy accolade. Dr. Donald my Vic.
Yeah.
Talk about how you also work with families. As you know, and I can't really move away from the underserved yet for you, because this is a space that I'm seeing you creating, and you have been on this for years. I mean, you have paid your dues. But how do you deal with this whole aspect of dysfunctional family structures that are confronting Belize? And how do you help women create micro enterprises to be self-sufficient, to help their households? Because it's a serious problem in Belize, high unemployment, where a lot of these women cannot care for their families. What are some of the initiatives that you have implemented to help create micro enterprises for women to create their own businesses and to sort of provide for themselves?
I will say it happens more through my one-on-one direct mentoring. There are quite a bit of I occupy that space quite a bit, and so oftentimes when women reach out to me through multiple areas, this is a particularly delicate angle I'm going to touch on. For instance, because I have, as you have said, been in the space for such a long time, pretty near a decade now, people generally know, oh, you deal with women. Whenever I reach out to Jules Vasquez, he'd say, if you're calling me and you're on the end of the line, it has to do with women. What it is you want to do now with women? So one of the ways, for instance, is I find that the mentoring where I connect and I generally seek to make women come into a space where they feel safe in a relationship, because for me, mentoring is a relational matter, and how do I meet them at their point of need and understanding? Because that's essential. While we may all, and I have been a part of a World Bank project where I supported over 3 years women in the business space, how they can grow their business, what to do at different phases in their undertaking. Really, that was what anchored me in the space as to how much my talent can be passed on and my experiences can be passed on from a way where I giving it to those who really want to receive it. Because whereas we are very clear that there is a lot of need, and there is oftentimes the thinking that you can go and get someone to be something that they don't really already yet to be. So it has to be a meeting of the mind. A woman has to be ready for a particular space, for example, to get into the entrepreneurship space. It's not an easy space, Bilal. Being an entrepreneur is not an easy space. So I often, through the mentoring process, is to really find that connection with what exactly is the woman need, because I cannot impose what I believe or my beliefs or what I think is best for this person. It is what do you see, and how can I have a way to open a heart space for an honest, authentic dialogue and the creation of a relationship where we are each exchanging and seeing each other with respect as we support each other. Because for me, it is not just the matter of my feeding someone. I feel that the service I give also does something for me, because it keeps me grounded, it keeps me humble, it makes me realize repeatedly, there but for the grace of God goes I. Also it makes me recognize the extent of gratitude I have for the family I was born into, that often many of these women do not have. They do not have the support, maybe from how they were first from their first nuclear family, and then they may not have it in the family that they married into. So a lot of that has been a two-way path for me. But yeah, I hope I really connected with the question you raised with my response.
Right now, we're going to take a break. It's that time. And once we come back from the break, I would really want you to talk about, you mentioned entrepreneurship, to find out like what type of jobs these women are doing and how has it impacted their life, when they're able to enter into these spaces, because on average the men spaces are the money earners. You earn higher in male environments than in traditional female environments. So it would be very interesting after the break for us to discuss, how these types of spaces do have a change on some of these women's lives.
Mesopotamia deserved better. Better than
understand.
Tell them that we bonded.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
Tell them that we bonded.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
Yes, we are back. This is Naval String Connections. I'm Bilal Morris, live from my studio here in Los Angeles with ARIA LIGHTFOOT, live out of Florida. We have a very special guest today commemorating Women's Month. Dr. Donalyn Myvitt talking about women in non-traditional programs and all that Caribbean perspectives of micro-enterprise. The big show that is about to come off pretty soon commemorating this Women's Month. And tapping into the diaspora, which is a question I want to sort of come back to you with, Dr. Myvitt. So we'll just go back to Jose Aria. You have that big question for her.
Welcome back, Dr. Myvitt. One of the questions I do want to know is, when women enter these spaces that are dominated by men, how does it impact them? Even with their own families. When I did my capstone on the gender equality bill, I did interview 5 well-known women in Belize that were viewed as leaders, and I asked everyone, will you enter the political realm? Because more women in leadership, and everyone said no, which was interesting. You know, that women do shy away, they do shy away from politics normally. And what about these other spaces, like you are in these spaces where it's dominated by men? When women enter these spaces, how does it impact them?
Let me take it from the positive side. The immediate impact quite often is economic, because male-dominated spaces often bring a higher earning capacity, right? So if I use my example, my personal life as an example, I have worked when I was an employee. I was really exploring new paths because we are talking, I entered into my full-time employment late 1980s. And so at that time, not many women in Belize were occupying boardroom spaces. Okay, and I spent many, many years there. Ultimately, I come to really appreciate the fact that it was a space that allowed me to have earned at a level that, had I not been there, I would not have been able to earn the same kind of salaries that I did as I moved through the progression. So certainly the first impact that one can realize is the economic impact of it. You know, the negative side of it, however, is oftentimes the stress, which is why the program like Celebrate Her is so good, because you can come out and you get a release and you get to feel that you're supported. The stress of being in those spaces can at times take its toll, because for example, if I use my own experience, I have had to encounter instances where company entire restructuring, salary scale changed, and when I looked at what was released, I was shocked to recognize that I was not placed where I thought I ought to have been. And when I looked at the restructuring and saw the positions given to people who I was outperforming, I was flabbergasted. But again, what I say is the benefit of having a very strengthened anchor and a strong inner sense of self. In that regard, I simply booked myself into an interview with the CEO, and in no uncertain terms, I made it clear to him, I have seen this and I know my worth. And there is absolutely no way, based on the performance reviews I had been getting, when I look at where you have positioned me in this restructuring and where I see my colleagues, where they have been placed, I need for someone to explain to me justifiably how I am on the lower level and I am outperforming them. Ultimately, it was to my benefit because change was made. and I was placed where I felt I was supposed to be. But again, that came out of my owning my space and my being able to say, this is what I believe I value, pointing out that if you can evaluate them, I want you to know when we sit in that boardroom as colleagues, we're also evaluating each other. And I know where I ought to be compared to where others are and where I have been placed. Now, I don't generally use comparison to assess how I am performing. But in that instance, it served me to point out what I felt was the injustice. And that's oftentimes the dark side of occupying non-traditional space. For example, in the context of the entertainment industry as we speak now, one of the artists said to me last week as we were talking, and each year I'm pushing them to understand how to own the space and to use it and leverage it as an opportunity. And she said to me, would you consider taking on management of female artists in this space? Because what I experience when I have to go and do performances out there, and I'm in some of these spaces and males want to really treat me in a way that I am not there for. I'm there to perform, and they have other agendas, and sometimes just to negotiate what it is I'm supposed to get. She's like, would you think about coming into this space and managing female artists? So it does speak to the fact that oftentimes when we occupy, and especially when we are the trailblazers in these non-traditional space, we have quite a load on our shoulder. But one of the benefits beyond the economic is also recognizing that I am opening the door for my sisters who will come behind me. And I take that as something very serious. You know, I say to my girls, I have 2 girls, I say to them all the time, always recognize, especially when you're occupying a space and you are one of the few, that you have a responsibility to those who are coming behind you. And so you must always think of that as you occupy that space. How can I bring another sister in? How can I add value? Leadership for me, and I'll just touch that a little bit. I love John Maxwell's point of view on the matter of leadership. Leadership is how do you add value? People often think of leadership in the capacity of a position. You can be a leader anywhere you are. For me, it is understanding that you must bring value. And so when we get into the role of, when we get into the space of being in non-traditional role, particularly when we are leading as the trailblazer in there, we have to understand that we bring value to the space, and we must own that there is always a dimension that we bring to the table, to the conversation, and that we are opening a space. So it is understanding that we are just opening spaces for other women to step in as well. And that's a really rewarding thing. Reward does not always show up. And we must remove the idea that reward always is tied to only money. Reward are tied to other non-tangibles, you know, that is also very impactful for our society and for women.
Well, what are, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges these women are still facing? Because you are a trailblazer, however, a lot of women still don't get the respect. And like you said, you had your father that was your mentor, that basically gave you the confidence to go forward and be in these spaces, right? But my experience, I played sports. I played basketball, I played volleyball, and even in the United States, I work in construction management. And I can tell you, whenever I'm dealing with a contractor, the minute they hear a woman's voice, and it's my experience, and I've been in it for almost 10 years now, they automatically think you have no idea what you're talking about. And they will push the envelope. In other words, things that they won't do with a guy, they're going to try with you. Like, you know, come up with all these different contracts, different things that aren't necessary when you're doing a renovation or building something. They'll come to you with complete nonsense. But they keep testing whether, like, the things that they would do with a guy. I mean, I've been in it so long, I feel like I have to preface every introduction with I've been in this industry for this long. Because if you don't preface it, you get all the well, do you know what I'm talking about? Blah, 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 that type. So how, in your experience, what are some of the barriers that you see for women today that they are still facing, even the ones who are trying to break into some of these spaces?
Well, as you have already pointed out, Aria, the oftentimes the first matter one has to climb is having to prove that you had the ability to be there.
Right.
Having to prove that you are worthy, you can deliver, and that you know your stuff. And that is usually, I believe, if I'm hearing you correctly, that it really can grate on the nerve, because the fact that you are there, you have gone through a process of selection that have you there, and if you have been there for a length of time, it showed that you have delivered, But oftentimes it is, having to endure coming across that mindset and that person who feel that, oh, it's a woman, she's soft, I'm going to get away with this, or I can slip something under the radar and she won't be aware of it, or she'll give me a pat on the head and excuse me and all that sort of nonsense, that we can't deliver from a space that is accountable. I don't want to use the word that is hard, but it's that we would not be able to say, listen, what you have just delivered to me is nonsense, and so let's start again, if it's worthy of starting over, or point blank saying we're done, saying we're done. I am encountering that because the entertainment space is new for me. Right. Coming into it, that's not really where I was before. So, but the elements of and the dynamics of some of what I'm facing, I have faced before. You're contracting with someone for big sums of money, because putting off the show that I do with all the lightings and all the things that I bring into the Bliss, it costs a lot of money in Belize. Right. And so you end up contracting with individuals who are supposed to show up at a certain hour, whether we classify it as unprofessionalism as a culture in Belize, or small entrepreneurs do not know how to deliver well. For me, it always rubs the fact that I feel that the element of being a female that they have negotiated this contract with has a play in it as well. And so they do not step to the plate at the level that they ought to. And so, it's the matter of having to say, hello, hold you accountable. That they oftentimes also think women will not hold them accountable. And so that is something women have to understand, that when you are occupying your professional space, your business space, this is not your son you're dealing with, and even when we're dealing with our sons, so I'm going to tap into it also from that home level. Oftentimes as women, particularly when it's single-headed household, we make the mistake of falling in love with our sons rather than loving our sons. We give them too many excuses for the mess up than holding them accountable. And so for me, it is ensuring when I'm in my professional space that if I hold myself accountable, I will hold anybody who comes to treat with me accountable for their performance. So in the instance of that particular contractor, I don't think that individual was ready for the fact last year when I said, every point at which you cost, you got a down payment, you required a 50% deposit, I delivered. It was a lot of money. Now, every point and element that you cost me is going to be deducted from the balance of this, because I had to incur these other costs, and it's going to come out of what is left from yours. True or fit, for me, it didn't matter. It's like there is a cost to be borne. Who will carry it? I didn't mess up. You did. So you're going to carry that cost. I'm not going to pay in addition to what you contracted with me in order for the delivery. So holding men accountable when they show up, holding them to certain value standards that you have. For me, if you are not going to treat with me in a respectful manner, that relationship is going to close out completely. I entertain absolutely no disrespect. I have zero tolerance for disrespect. just simply will not. And I make that very clear. So if you're going to exchange, because another thing that women experience is how men would speak to you in the professional realm. Suddenly, they want to talk down to you. They want to be condescending, or they dare to go into this pet talk. Hi, darling. Hi. Yeah, hi, pet. Hi,
That
mommy.
really gets on my
Hi,
nerves.
mommy. I am like, hold on. I left my 3 children at home. This is my name. The other thing I had encountered, so it's addressing those matter and not laughing about it, because it's not laughable. Not stepping about it. I can remember being in the boardroom and a male swing around and said to me, "So Myvit," and I said, "Hold a minute. I was taught Myvit come with a handle. You're either going to say Miss Myvit, or you're going to call me Donnelly. We don't have a relationship that you can call me Donnelly. So if you're going to address me as Miss Myvit." You know, all these kind of nuanced way in which one has to establish. So sometimes it feels like overload, because you're walking and you have to always have on this kind of armor to ensure that the respect is given, and that, you know, that you in all, it's just a lot. Yeah, it's just a lot. Yeah.
That's a very powerful message. I want to throw this one in here in ARIA, because Dr. Marvin almost blew the house. Well, he blew the house down. He puffed and he blew the house down. I mean, hey, men, tighten up, because these kinds of Belizean women, girl, man, look, I want to vote for you when you become the Belize female prime minister, the first Belize female prime minister of the country. You understand?
You're putting me in a space that I don't occupy.
But it's not my question. I'm just sort of powdering you up a little. But talk about, you are a master fundraiser. I mean, in terms of a woman in this male-dominating field of tapping economic resources to run programs, because you have been at this for a long time and you have been self-employed. You have got out of that whole area. I mean, what you talk about, you did yourself. You are an entrepreneur. You know, you created your own business.
Yeah.
But talk about the sophistication behind fundraising, and whether you teach this or you bring women into this space in Belize. And because fundraising is a very, very, very difficult task. To go beg, as they would say, right? But the sophistication of writing a grant, to get funding for certain programs, and a lot of women in the underserved and grassroots communities, they don't know how to do these things. And I mean, I know you have done it for them. And when you in talking about that, Donnelly, also address the whole aspect of the role the Belizean diaspora has played in the development of the country. If you can pivot into that, if you can, because I heard you mention that you have got a lot of support from the Belizean diaspora. Belize's the history of remittances coming out of the Belizean diaspora has been historic. I don't think that we get Belizeans in the diaspora get the kind of respect that they're supposed to get politically, socially, and otherwise, constitutionally, in terms of that. You have been someone who have seen the power of the diaspora, its economic power, and what it can do, particularly in the development of programs that you are doing for women, which is the backbone of Belizean society. Address that and talk about that.
We actually have to go to another break, Bilal.
So when we come back, we can...
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go to a break, and when we come back, we'll have Donnelly think about those and address it when we come back. Stay with us.
Mesopotamia deserve better. Better than shine
understand.
Tell him that we bonding.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell him that we bonding.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
Tell him that we bonding.
You're bonded, you're bonded. I am a true born Belizean.
Tell him that we bonding.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell him that we bonding.
I want you people to understand.
Tell him that we bonding.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell him that we bonding.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
Tell him that we bonding.
You're bonded, you're bonded.
This is Naval String Connections. I'm Bilal Morris. We are back with my host and co-host ARIA Lightfoot live out of Florida. And we have a very special guest today. Our guest today is Dr. Donnelyn Myvitt, a Belizean business consultant, expert, entrepreneur, talking about her program that she will be having, the Big Time Show, commemorating Women's Month.
Celebrate her.
Celebrating, that is.
Celebrate her.
Celebrate her. Yes, it's called Celebrate Her. Thank you for that, Aria. And I wish I was in Belize there to enjoy that, because from the video I've seen, it looks great. But what I want to go into to get from you there, Dr. Myvitt, is the whole aspect of fundraising, as I originally was trying to get at before we went to break. How do the programs that we were talking off the record, and you made an excellent point in terms of how you go in as with your business, with your consultancy, tapping into funding from the World Bank and so forth on the behalf of Belizean women that you serve. Talk about this, because fundraising is a very sophisticated thing. Writing grants and all of that, a lot of our women don't have the sort of literacy and understanding in terms of doing these things like grant writing. So talk about that, if you may.
Well, the best way I can coin it is to say that, yes, indeed, grant writing is a very technical matter, and quite often small businesses do not have the capacity. The small entrepreneur do not have the capacity, do not understand sometimes the nuances, or as I have found at times, they may not even have themselves organized in a way that they can produce a balance sheet, an income statement, because they're just moving on the fly. So they haven't had in place the kind of structures that would make it possible for them to submit what is required under the grant proposals. And so oftentimes what would be needed is a kind of support structure that perhaps can be offered through a bell trade, where they are brought in when these kind of calls are out and are supported in doing the grant proposal writing. So that kind of structure needs to be in place for more successful grant application to occur in Belize. I have had the fortunate, I've been fortunate in that, because that's my background and that's my training. I have been successful in tapping into writing for grant proposal, for example, out of Caribbean Export. For my own business, I have been successful in securing grant funding for my marketing materials, Caribbean Export. I had gotten grant funding for that. And out of that, I have supported more than one woman, woman-led or woman co-owned, Belize Diving Adventures Limited. I supported them in writing a grant funding for them to have secured grant funding from Caribbean Export to expand their business. And so, yes, it is a very delicate matter of how do women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs overall in Belize become aware of what are the grants out there, and then how do they get the support in order to be able to successfully write a grant. In the particular element of where I am at with this program, which is also tied to the point that when you're writing for a grant, you have to have a vision. You have to clearly know what it is you are going to deliver, because people have to tie in to what it is you are putting forward for them to support. So that's also a very important matter that is often missed, that when you ask an entrepreneur exactly what it is you want grant funding for, and they would talk around it without being able to articulate clearly. For instance, let's say I need to build my marketing, and you have to tie that marketing to how does the marketing and where will I position whatever is the marketing material I would seek the grant funding for to the growth of your business, because ultimately it should be tied to the growth of your business. So you have to be able to clearly articulate what it is you need and how that need will have impact if funded, because the grantor doesn't just want to give you money, right? They want to know that that money is going to be put to good use. So there has to be a clear vision for it. So for instance, in the concept of this program, and knowing that they celebrate her concert, and knowing that many, if not most Belizeans in the diaspora are looking for ways in which they can support home. Many of them still have their heart space tied to home. Many of them grapple with the idea that we have poverty that's so high in Belize. How can they impact? So when they hear of a program that says, listen, would you support this program that we have called the Exposure Project, that will bring into our audience under-resourced attendees who otherwise would not get this exposure, and who, when they come there, as we would say, it opens them, it allows them to dare to dream bigger. And so they tie into the sentiment of that. They understand. For example, earlier, Bilal, you shared and you said, you know what? In my youth, I can remember the Bliss with Frankie Reno and saying, we can't afford to go in there. Diaspora do understand it because they have come out of it. They have come out of Belize. They understand the history of what it is we are talking about and where we are. And so it's a matter of ensuring that you can language what it is you want, that you have clearly identified what it is you want, and you can align it with where the diaspora has a heart space. And therefore, then when that connect happen, they are willing to support. And so we are really asking to help us this year for 2025, reach at least our minimum pledge of supporting 100 attendees to celebrate her concert. The payment for it can be Zelled, or if for those who have a connection in Belize, it can be sent directly to my business account. And generally, we don't necessarily confine any of the sponsors to where it should go.
Could you give us your Zelle information for those who want to contribute?
Yes, the Zelle is BCTD info, info@gmail.com. It's an email. And so you can Zelle to that. And typically, it, depending on the level of ticket that one would be interested, $25 US would get a general ticket, $30 US would get a reserve, $40 US would get a premium seat. And we really, I have had persons in the past, for example, I had someone contacted us and they were like, I want to support with 10. I wanted to go to my alma mater. And so that particular school was identified, and and I'm so excited for them. And so we go and we deliver the tickets. They contact the school and they say that there are those who identify where they wanted to go. There are persons who have contacted us and said they may have family members or friends, and then they Zelle the payment and tell us where, or give us the number. We contact the individual and we say, we have 2 tickets, where can we deliver it? We have 3 tickets, where can we deliver it? And so it is that kind of alignment in the diaspora that has supported this program and has enabled us to make it as inclusive as we have envisioned we want it to be.
So if anybody in the Belize diaspora would like to contribute, please send to the Zelle. The show is March 29th at the Bliss Institute in Belize City. And what it does, it helps underserved women for Women's Month to actually be exposed to some of the teachings, some of the artistry, some of the mental health type of environment that's positive, so that they can see that something else exists. And with that being said, we're just running a little bit over time. Thank you, Dr. Maivit. I would love for you to come back and talk honestly about how do we educate our men. Because there's a lot of things that we experience as women men have I raise a lot of boys, and sometimes like you have to, sometimes they're paired the way we're paired. Many times the guys are oblivious to certain things, and I think it would be good. I saw a program in Africa. One of the ways that they were able to deal with sexism and even sexual assault was by bringing the boys in and teaching them so that they grow some empathy about how they communicate with women, because a lot of times we're taught by our fathers, or the boys are taught by their fathers, and we come from these traditional societies, and sometimes they might not even realize that their own mother might be enduring this because it seemed normal. So, you know, it's something I think you're doing a great job. Thank you for coming on and creating a space for women so that they can be exposed to these types of environments, and hopefully they can take it back to their own children and families. And that, I feel like I think we need to get back to family structures, and we need to get back into the families of Belize and start raising the village raising the child. So thank you so much for coming in. And Harlan, our engineer, Chrissy, XTV, Creme Radio, they create this space for the diaspora to communicate with Belizeans at home. So we thank you so much, and Bilal will have the last words.
Yeah, I want to thank you to Dr. Donalyn Maivit, my good friend. So good to see you. And you brought a breath of fresh air here. I mean, what a dynamic presentation you made today. And again, we want to say this has been a Creme Television or XTV production. This show is Navel String Connections, and thank you Belizeans across the Belizean diaspora for tuning in. And again, join us next week for another episode of Navel String Connections right here, same time on XTV. And again, we want to thank Azari. I'm just going to duplicate this. Thank our brother Harlan in the studio, our producer Noor Mohammed. And again, I want to thank Dr. Donalyn Maivit for coming in at such a short notice and being our guest today. And I hope that you were able to get out your message, Donalyn, and touch the diaspora and the people at home. We want to again say thank you for watching.
I am a true Belizean. Belize my home, my native land. I want you people to understand. I am proud to be a Belizean.